I'm Barry Trammell, and I say it's just as well if the Big 12 goes ahead and splits now.
I'm Jenny Carlson, and from the Opubco Studios in Oklahoma City, you're watching the Press Row. Barry, I think that's ridiculous talk. I read your column on Sunday, which obviously lined this out, but I don't think the Big 12 should go around just jettisoning schools without reason. But you obviously think this is a good idea. Why?
Well, I think it's going to happen, whether you like it or not, whether you want it to or not. It's going to happen. We're going to reconfigure. There's going to be some schools left behind. The Big 12, in my opinion, has two options. It can wait and be reactive and just see where the chips fall and people sort of scramble for slots, or it can be proactive and its lead schools, its flagship schools, can find the destinations most advantageous to them. I mean, you're right, it's not a pleasant thought to think of leaving behind Iowa State or Baylor or Kansas State or whoever, but it's going to happen one way or the other, and I think your Texases, your Oklahomas, your Kansases, your next tier, the A&Ms, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, those schools, they're better off washing out for themselves now rather than waiting and just picking up scraps later.
I don't mind proactive, but I would definitely say if the Big 12 is looking to change the lineup, I think they need to go out and get those replacement schools now as opposed to just cutting ties with some schools and running short. I think you still need to have a 12-team conference. To me, that just seems, if you're going to be one of those powerhouse player conferences, I think you need to have the numbers. Now, granted, I think Texas and Oklahoma, when you add those two football schools into the mix, you're going to have the power on the national level to make some decisions without maybe 12 teams. But for some reason, Barry, I think that continuing to have a dozen teams in the conference would be good. Now, if you can go out and secure some schools as replacements, then maybe you start talking about jettison schools.
I just don't see the television sets being available without some sort of merger with the high population areas. My thought is, Pac-10 merger with the good chunk of the Big 12. I just don't see where, if you go, Utah, BYU, people like that, very solid schools would be great competitively, but there's not enough television sets to really elevate the Big 12's financial picture, and this is all about money and television sets.
Sure. I think one of the big questions with a possible Big 12 Pac-10 combo in my mind is travel for those non-basketball, football sports out there, because you're talking about tons of crisscrossing of the country. Now, maybe if the TV revenues are significantly to the point that you don't have to worry about your tennis team going all the way from Norman to Stanford or from Stillwater to Tucson all the time. I mean, those are the types of trips that are going to be taken all the time if you combine those conferences. That, to me, Barry, is the question out there is, are the conferences going to have enough in terms of TV revenues, if they would combine Pac-10 and Big 12, to make up for all of the additional costs, especially for those non-revenue sports? To me, that's a big issue. And I haven't seen those bottom line numbers. I'm sure that the ADs and presidents, they wouldn't make that decision without those numbers. But to me, that's a huge question mark out there. Hey, stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.